Hello, this is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and it's horse racing weekend with lots of basketball games, actually two, and a ton of baseball games. We've got a lot of plays today on Friday. We're going to have a bunch on Saturday and Sunday as well. I'm joined today by our horse handicapper, sports handicapper from Florida, Hank Goldberg. Hank, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Excellent, actually. Winning day yesterday in baseball. Happy about that. Looking forward to a big week. What do we got going in the Preakness this week?
Well, it's whether Justify is going to win or not. That's the big story. He's probably going to go off 2-5. I had a couple of stories about him that I released on CBS, one of which was that when I asked Chad Brown why he was going to run Good Magic, when he had told the NBC guys after the race, after the Derby, that he was probably not going to run, what changed his mind? He said, when I saw Justify limping on Thursday, on Monday morning, or Sunday morning rather, after the race, Baffert paraded him in front of the media, and he was walking with a limp. I also heard, upon further review, there was a possibility he might have had a quarter crack, although I haven't confirmed that, but that he may need a patch. And I'm curious to see if it's a sloppy track again, if they cover the area of where the wound was, which they have treated, by the way, if they have to cover it up. Now, I talked to Wayne Lucas, and Wayne has kept an eye on Justify, and Wayne says he looks fine. He worked out Thursday, but he just jogged. Baffert says that he just jogged because he didn't want to take a chance on working him hard in what was, again, a sloppy track, and it's been raining in Baltimore all week. So I'm a little suspicious. But Baffert says the horse is fine. People who observed the horse in training yesterday said that he looked fine. Although I had talked to the people who represent Lone Sailor, who told me that they watched the horse work earlier in the week, and that his hind legs were exactly in sync. But I haven't heard any repeat observations like that. But if Justify is fine and he runs his race, everybody, as Wayne Lucas said, is running for second place. So you've got to use the horse on top because he is far and away, well, maybe not far and away, but he's the best of these. Let's talk about Good Magic. Good Magic ran second to this horse all the way around. He chased him all the way around Churchill Downs, but he wasn't going to catch Justify. And Justify pulled away a little bit in the Derby. This horse loves the off-track. It's going to rain right through tomorrow. And if it's sloppy again there, this will benefit both horses. But I'm wondering if maybe Chad won't decide to send his horse a little earlier and maybe try to take the lead earlier and change the horse's tactics. And if that happens, it would be interesting to see what happens. Now, if they run 1-2 again with Justify on top, the payoffs aren't going to be too good, particularly if the one horse, Quip, who figures to have the lead early, runs third. I like Lone Sailor. He is he's 15-1 right now. I think he can hit the board. He threw a shoe in the Kentucky Derby, and that's a very significant piece of information that nobody else has revealed. Excuse me, I talked to the barn manager. He said the horse threw a shoe in the Derby, and yet he closed well, despite the fact that he was blocked a couple of times. But he was running right behind Justify when he threw the shoe. I was talking to Nick Zito, who told me that his horse that won the Belmont years ago, had also thrown a shoe in the Kentucky Derby, and he said, that's huge, because his horse came back and won the Belmont, and at a big price. And he said, throwing a shoe in a race is a very significant piece of information. And when I told him about it, he was very impressed that I knew that. And nobody else has revealed that yet among the other handicappers. So I think that Lone Sailor, excuse me, and by the way, he was supposed to be 28 to 1 or 30 to 1, but the track odds maker made him 15 to 1. He's been training very well, and they're confident, the Amos people, coming into this race. He's a closer. He's going to be making up ground down the stretch. And I think that right now, my three horses are going to be Good Magic number 5, Lone Sailor number 2, and I think you got to throw Justify in, and you got to throw him on top, and also box him in exactas just in case Justify is not 100%. You know, the other factor is that this is his 5th race in 2 months, and coming back after 2 weeks, although nobody gets him ready after 2 weeks better than Baffert does, but there's also the possibility of a bounce. But, you know, but if he runs his race, as Wayne Lucas told me, they're all running for 2nd place. Wayne's horse, Bravazzo, who ran a strong race in the Derby, he ran 6th, but he was in 4th place at the top of the stretch, and this is a shorter race, and if he runs as well in Baltimore as he did in Louisville, he's going to hit the board. And Wayne told me that he wishes the race was last Saturday because he was so sharp coming out of Kentucky. Wayne's got 2 horses in there, but this is the better of the 2. His other horse, I think, is trouble prone, and he didn't even want to work out the other day. He just resists all kinds of decorum on the racetrack. So you got the 7, the 5, the 2, the 8. That would be my superfecta box, and I would maybe throw the 1 in there as a 5th horse, because he's going to have the lead early. And in case he lasts for a piece of it, you might want to throw him in for 4th or 5th place in the race. But that's the way the race shapes up to me. But I think Lone Sailor at 15 to 1 is my dark horse.
That's an excellent recap and preview of the race, Hank. Thank you for that. You know, betting a 2 to 5 horse is tough. I mean, that's, even though Justified looked really good in the Derby, and he's looked good in every race, that's a tough price to pay for a horse in a race.
Well, he deserves it. He's undefeated. But I think there's a little bit of a red flag because, you know, they had to treat the injury after the Derby because they called it a bruise. But if he has a quarter crack, which one of the trainers told me he thought was the issue, and they have to put a patch on it, if they put a patch on the area and they have to run in the slop again, you know, one of the things that could happen during the course of the race is that if anything leaks into the patch, the ankle becomes like a pressure cooker, and it's hard for a horse to run that way.
Would they? I mean, if he had would they actually take a chance with a horse like this and do that? I mean,
well, they treated the horse, and he's fine. He shows no indication of any injury right now. But again, if they want to play it safe and put a patch on for the race, and again, if something gets in there during the race, it could compromise his performance. On the other hand, he's so good, he might be able to overcome it.
Well, let's hope nothing happens to him. I love to see horses go on and, you know, into breeding and everything else. So if they do run him, I hope it's a healthy race for him, whether he wins or not.
It's not going to affect his breeding.
Well, not unless he gets hurt, and the horses do get hurt. I used to own a bunch of them, and unfortunately had several of them get hurt. But anyway, basketball. We got back to basketball tomorrow. We have two big games. Cavs are down 2-0 going back home. They have not looked good, and they're running up against a coach that seems to do no wrong in Stevens. The Celtics play good team basketball. They move the ball a lot, pass the ball off often. They don't isolate like LeBron and the Cavs do. That's kind of a different form of basketball than that I saw in my early days. And I like moving the basketball the way the Rockets moved the ball the other night against the Warriors, which was kind of surprising coming off of their first game where they didn't do it at all. They were very effective, and that makes that series very difficult to handicap. However, the Warriors hardly ever lose in at home in the playoffs, but it can happen. Anything can happen. But we got two very interesting games to handicap, Hank.
Well, I projected that if they were going to win a game, it would be the second game at home. That's pretty much the system play. And they won easily, and I don't think Golden State really showed up. They took the night off. And they'll go home, and they'll probably, I'm sure they'll win the two games at home. Curry's got to find his game. Although he was getting to the rim, but he was one for the game on outside shots. But he'll get home and he'll hit his outside shots, and the other guys have to step up. So part of the thing is that they played an isolated game, an isolation game, and their one guy was taking most of the shots, and that was kind of odd for Golden State. I think the coach will get on them in the 3 days that they have off, and they'll get back to playing their game where they distribute the ball a lot more, and I think they'll be fine.
You see any hope for the Cavs coming off of what they looked like the last couple of games? You think? I mean, the Celtics haven't played that well on the road in the playoffs, but they're undefeated at home. So, I mean, these point spreads are pretty big for these teams. I mean, these are not low numbers. You got Cleveland 6.5, a point favorite over Boston, and you got Golden State 7 and 7.5 over Houston.
Well, I've got Golden State for the series. I'm not worried about that. But I'll tell you the thing about Cleveland. They have no defense whatsoever. And, the one thing about Boston is that they play good team ball. They work the ball very well. And if they're hitting their shots from outside, they could be a tough out even on the road. But they're a different shooting team on the road. And so, LeBron is going to be all fired up for this one. And I'll tell you what surprised me a little bit. They've got a guy who can really shoot from outside, who came in the other night, and he scored 11 points very quickly. And then they put him on the bench. And then they didn't use him until late in the second half. And by the time he brought him in, I don't understand that. This is a guy who can hit, who's probably the best three-point shooter that they have outside of LeBron when he's hot. Why did they keep him on the bench for so long? When he came into the game.
Are you talking about Korver?
Korver.
Oh, yeah, he's an excellent three-point shooter.
Yeah, well, he disappeared after he came in and he was hot. He made 3 out of 4 three-point shots. He had 11 points very quickly. They put him back on the bench, and then you didn't see him for a long time into the second half. I'm wondering what that coach was thinking about.
Many times we say that during the year, Hank. What are those guys thinking about? I have no idea. He definitely is an offensive weapon. He's one of the best three-point shooters in the league, has been for a long while. Maybe his game lacks in other areas that the coach doesn't like. I don't know that. I haven't read anything about it. But we have some.
Well, I'll tell you, it won't matter what that coach likes if they get knocked out in this round. He'll be gone.
I thought it was interesting the other day that the now ex-coach of Toronto is up for Coach of the Year, and they had made that announcement that he was one of the 3 nominees, and yet he's been fired. And it's a strange. I mean, just because you run up against LeBron every year and you can't beat LeBron doesn't mean you're a bad coach. A lot of people couldn't beat.
No.
A lot of people couldn't beat Michael Jordan, and they were pretty good too. I just don't get that. They leave.
Well, they think he's kind of like the Cincinnati Bengals coach. You know, he gets in the playoffs and can't do anything.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. But most of his Achilles heel has been caused by LeBron, and hardly anybody beats LeBron. So here's a guy that's been to the finals 8 years in a row. Well, 7 years in a row, 8 this year if he makes it. But I don't get that. I think it's a bad decision. But anyway, they might have to tear that team down, build it up again after that. But it's going to be an interesting couple of days. We got a good game on Saturday with Boston at Cleveland, and we got the Sunday game with Houston at Golden State, and then they come back on Monday and Tuesday with the same 2 setups. So it's going to be an interesting 4 days. It's kind of strange to not have any basketball the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday, nothing. And but now we get to the real meat of what the sports world is, and that's baseball. Baseball has been king right now, and it's going to continue through the summer. We have some, it looks like the Dodgers may start to hit the ball again. They haven't been doing very well, but today they run up against one of the best pitchers in baseball, Scherzer, with Washington, and the Nationals have been pretty hot. Scherzer has been extremely hot. That's a big matchup. And then, of course, we have Cleveland with Clevenger going up against Houston and Morton. That's another huge matchup. And both the home teams in these games are big favorites. Of course, the Yankees, who are the hottest team in baseball, are going up against Kansas City, which is a team that has not done very well this year. They have a good little pitcher there in Jonas, but that's a big matchup for him to go up against the Yankees. So we got some very interesting matchups.
I had a good score last night with Detroit. Came back and won that game at a big price, which I gave out yesterday. And I also had 2 winners last night. 2 big dogs that came through for us. So you can get some live dogs in some of these games because
absolutely, absolutely you can. It's hard to beat baseball if you're going to lay these big prices.
Yep.
I mean, if you lose one big price, you have to win 2 games to make it up, and that's a hard thing to do. I prefer to play underdogs if I can, and if I can find any reason to play an underdog, I'm going to do it, because the top teams win 90 to 100 games, so there's a lot of losses in there for those teams. Now, the pitchers. The line is based on the pitchers, but what happens after the 6th inning when these starting pitchers usually not in the game, they go to the bullpens and they get killed. I remember a couple of weeks ago where Verlander had struck out 14 Yankees and he was smoking, and they pull him out. I think the game was like 0-0 or Houston was slightly ahead, and the bullpen comes in and just blew the game totally. And
it was 0-0.
It was 0-0. It was a great game. It was a great game, great matchup, and the bullpen gives it up. So it's really tracking the bullpens is really important now. It's a different world today, and that's you can't just bet starting pitchers. It just doesn't work unless you're betting the first 5 innings. That you can get away with doing that more effectively if you bet the first 5 innings. But other than that, it's the roll of the dice. Hank, your plays and mine are up at jimfice.com, and we're looking for a big weekend. Anything you want to add before we close out, Hank?
No, I've been working hard on this Preakness, and last year, of course, I made $11,000 on the Preakness. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but and it's a shame because they had rain all week in Baltimore, and it's going to continue through the weekend. So I'm looking for another sloppy track.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be sloppy. They've had a lot of, well, heck, all the Nationals games have been rained out, and they have a lot of floods in that area. And I have to mention that there was a big shooting in Texas today, and some people are dead at a high school. It's a sad thing. It's a sad thing for what goes on. We now it's commonplace that this happens, and it's a terrible thing that we have to accept that. But prayers go out to the people who've lost their loved ones, and hopefully we find a solution. But thanks, Hank. I appreciate it, and we'll talk again on Monday.
All right, Jim.